Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. We'll start with the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item of business is the approval of the meetings of our last board meeting, June 8th. Everybody's had a chance to take a look at any corrections that need to be made?
I move to approve.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the June 8th meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And then we'll move on to the general fund vouchers, 77,859 through 77,938. And wire transfers 192,00567 through 192,00625.
I move to approve. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the general fund vouchers and wire transfers as read. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item on our agenda is the public comments on agenda items, and I don't think we have any of those, so we'll move on to our first item of new business, review of reopening, COVID-19 response.
Okay. So I have a couple documents in here. So the first document's passed all of the expense and revenue report. So before we go over the documents, I shared with you, it's not part of the packet, the board packet, but I just wanted to share with you the piece of paper that I had that I threw in your folders, just to give you a little bit of a kind of a grid for the number of meetings and planning and kind of everything that's been taking place in the district as far as, and this is just from June till now, and this doesn't even include, before we were closed with all of the district and building level staff meetings and the meetings that both Mr. Peterson and Mr. Gillis are involved with their organization. So it's just been really interesting times, with the transition from the Department of Public Instruction to, making the change now to the local decisions and working with the county. But a lot of this, the reentry planning meeting in July is the first document, and I won't go over every single thing, in each of the pieces, but I just wanted to give you just an overview, and if you had any questions regarding the reentry planning. So now it's changed from, like I've shared with you guys in the past, from the Department of Public Instruction to now just working with your local health agency, which in our case is Polk County, and then developing plans and proposals internally, even for every little thing. Like currently, right now, we're working on the FFA, banquet and trying to put something in place for the FFA crew, but. Right now we've started slow, which I think is a good approach, and not just had the doors wide open, but just internally we have the kind of the two main things in July are the graduation ceremony, and then we're not doing summer school, but we're doing the weight room and open gym, which was tied to summer school in the past. We're doing those two pieces. So the reentry plan in July, you can see, just kind of the district precautions, things that we've done. We've had purchased plexiglass, had that installed in some of the main, high risk areas. That's more for the fall. But a lot of stuff we're on waiting. We're on a wait now. Plexiglass and hand sanitizer are like gold right now. But we purchased some mobile hand sanitizer, and we're hopeful that they'll be here in the fall. We have some in place already. We have one in the weight room where kids have to wash their hands when they're in there. But anyway, so the re-entry stuff, we turned off all the water fountain, water bubblers or water fountains, and they're only allowed to use their own water bottle. So we left the water bottle bubblers that are in place and still functioning in there. We limited it to 10. So anyway, within the re-entry plan in July, page 2 just has the weight room procedures and the graduation procedures, and those are two links within the document with the district precautions and the stuff that we're doing in July. So I'll go over the weight room procedures, I guess, first. So it's actually the third document, sorry. So the weight room procedures, we limited the number of individuals in there. We have limited to 10. We have 1 to 2 staff members in there. They are kind of in cohorts. We're trying to keep it the same 10 each time, but the kids sign up. And they are allowed to, they're doing self-monitoring as far as like if their temperature is over 104 at home. Like I said, the drinking fountains have been disabled. The locker rooms are closed with the exception of, emergency bathroom type situations. If a student has to go to the bathroom, obviously we're allowing them to go in there and use the bathroom. They're washing their hands. If they're spotting one another, they're supposed to be wearing masks. And we are doing 3 different sessions and then open gyms in the evening. So in the morning sessions at 7:30 to 8:30, followed by 8:30 to 9:30. In between each lift, the kids are required to be cleaning their area, and then in between sessions, the staff that are in there are doing the wipe down to the door handles, kind of the high frequency areas that the kids don't hit when they're in there. And then at the end of each day, the custodial crew is going in there and sanitizing it as well. We also have boys basketball and volleyball are the only 2 sports right now that we have open gym. Wrestling is not allowed to do open mats due to the high risk. WIA has identified every sport as different risk levels, and that's one that's a higher risk. Right now, the Polk County has now been moved to a high-risk county as well, so we're waiting to hear if guidance is going to change some of these procedures. So that was just 2 days ago. They shifted us to a high risk. So as of right now, the director has informed me that we're okay to continue as is, and he's going to be communicating with us in the near future if we have to make any changes to these procedures. So we've increased the cleaning. The physical activity is also a little bit different as far as how we have it structured. Every student student athlete, they're doing the exact same lifts in there, and then we're rotating them to different areas within the weight room, so they don't just have free reign to do any lifts they want, and that limits their ability to be touching everything. We did purchase some new items in there too to help us out with cleaning, and we have some things that we're waiting on as well. Right now, summer leagues are a no-go until we hear any more from the county, and then we had 2 different waivers that we have all the kids sign. One kind of a generic waiver. It's more of I don't even know if I'd call it a waiver, but more of an informative Google form that any kid that participates, they have to go in there, and it's a number of slides that they go through, and it identifies what social distancing is and kind of the basics of this COVID mess. So they get to learn a little bit about it. And then we have a waiver of participation that the student has to fill out, and then the parent has to sign as well. Any questions with the weight room stuff? No? I'd like to think Mr. Rosine was a huge help in helping develop these, and also our coaching staff was really flexible. We had a coaching meeting, brought them all in, shared the procedures. I feel like I've been the bearer of bad news. You deliver the information of what you can and can't do, and we're all in the same boat. Most of us have kids, and we all want the same thing. We want to get back to normal, but unfortunately, there are measures that we have to put in place to make sure everybody's stays healthy and safe. And our coaching staff really very positive. Have been doing a nice job, with going in there and recognizing that this is, bigger than, the Clear Lake District, and there's things in place that we have to do even though we don't want to do. And then the kids have been doing a nice job too, as far as getting in there, and we have towels, and they clean their machines and their weights, and then at the end of every workout, we have a bin that the towels go into, and then our staff, we throw them in the wash and clean them, and they've been doing a nice job with that as well. So, questions with the weight room procedures or open gyms?
Air exchange in there, Josh? We have pretty good air exchange in the weight room.
We don't. We are going to get so we've been dealing with that for a couple of years prior to this. It gets so, like, there's moisture that collects on the floor. So when the referendum happened, they installed the AC, something was installed backwards. So we kept getting, like the bars kept rusting. I'm like, we got to get someone in here to, to fix this. It's so like gross in here. And so then last year we had a company come in, they figured out what the problem was, and it's been amazing ever since. But then as soon as we got kids in there this year, there was no moisture on any of the machines or the weights, but the floor. So then we thought maybe it had to do with the material of the floor, but we had Egan, who was involved in the referendum, said that they would come in and they knew what the problem was. It has to do with the air exchange with the AC. So right now it's not, there's no moisture collecting on any of the machines or weights, but on the floor it's not great. So we do have a fan blowing in one area of the weight room, but we hope to have that figured out here in the next week or two, because I think they're coming in next week to fix that. But it feels a ton better from last year. When you go in there, it's not like a humid, gross, moist feel when you're in there. So
Our building should be fairly up to par with air exchange. The systems probably match the buildings okay, so I think air exchange is a big thing with, along with social distancing to reduce the chances of COVID.
Yep. Any other questions? No. Okay. The second big thing for July is graduation. So that if you turn back one document, worked with multiple individuals: Mrs. Hughes, Mrs. Rubel, Mr. Rosine, Mr. Gillis, and then worked with the county as far as what can we do, what can't we do. We're still a go for July 26th. We're having a ceremony, which we need to discuss if all the board members are going to be present or not, or who would like to be a part of it. I really do think it doesn't lay out exactly what's going to be happening, during the ceremony, but I think that the following classes are going to be begging for this ceremony. I think it's going to be a pretty neat ceremony. We have as long as weather is kind to us, we have a plan in place where it's going to be outside on the football field. The number, we're allowing every graduate to identify six individuals to come and participate in the ceremony, and that's based on the 25% capacity of the stadium. So it wasn't just an arbitrary number. We tried to figure out how many this stadium would seat, and then have things in place to make sure that we weren't over that capacity mark. So right now it's going to be the fans are going to be sitting in the stadium, and then the graduates are going to be down on the track and stairs, and we're going to have the podium outside, kind of half on the track, half on the grass area. So the key thing, like I said, is the weather. It's going to be very weather dependent. So cross your fingers, set for July 26th. Questions regarding the graduation ceremony? Thoughts? No. Like I said, working with the county, a lot of it was, outside of our control as far as what we can and can't do. But like I said, I'm confident that it'll be a nice ceremony for the kids, and it could be a really neat and memorable ceremony. So, and obviously the district precautions, we have things in place as far as social distancing. All staff that are going to be present are going to be required to wear a face covering, a mask. Students, we felt like we can social distance, so we won't have masks on them. One difference though is we won't have them up on a podium. But I do think we have something else in store for them that I think that they're going to really like, rather than being up on a podium. I know if I were a parent, I think it'd be pretty cool. So we do have something in store for them that they'll find out on the during their practice on the night before. So, no questions? Okay. I don't think I missed anything as far as graduation. Weight room procedures we talked about. I did throw that in on the last document is that waiver that we are having all parents and students sign. And it's not, this one is specific to the weight room, but we're keeping that waiver for any other future events and stuff that we have if we need to have kids on campus. Which brings me to now reopening. So reopening is kind of the hot topic. I've been meeting with the Polk County superintendents. There's 9 schools in the Polk County area. We're doing our best to try to create plans that are in alignment with the surrounding school districts, because I think everybody recognizes that if you have a plan that strays from the region, I think it could be problematic for multiple schools. So we've met multiple times, have some items that the county has, as a whole, we've talked through, I guess for lack of better terms, they've called them non-negotiables. And then tomorrow we're going to be meeting with the steering committee. I'm going to meet with the admin team in the morning, kind of get a rough draft that we're going to be able to pitch to the steering committee tomorrow afternoon at 11:30. So any of you guys that are planning on coming, we have a posting. We posted it, so if there's a quorum, it's posted and we're good.
Is it 11 or 11:30?
11:30, I believe.
I think it's 11.
I think it's 11.
Is it 11? Okay.
I got 11. Yeah.
11? Okay, 11 o'clock. And the goal is to have school start in the fall, which it will, and 5 days a week, which is the plan. But obviously we're going to have safety measures in place for both the students and staff to make sure that everybody stays healthy and everybody's safe. So I'm confident that we'll have something in place that the majority will be happy with, and that we'll be ready to go in the fall. So as far as communication timeline, tomorrow, so as a county, we have a letter that's going out tomorrow to all stakeholders, just really kind of a generic letter, letting everybody know that, we're still planning. Plan to release the reopening plan on July 20th is kind of the hope. There's some districts that are doing it a little bit early, but that was kind of the agreed upon date originally to shoot for. So we're going to stick within the Clear Lake. So there are some schools that will be communicating out a little bit earlier, but on the letter that's going to go out tomorrow, it'll state, July 20th, we're going to have a game plan going out to all families saying this is our plan for reopening. And then after that, then once we have a district plan, that we're going to start the building level planning. So some of the stuff that doesn't involve like a steering committee, we're going to open it up to all. And anybody that wants to. So for example, at the elementary, like Mr. Peterson might have a meeting specific to recess duty, and then obviously it wouldn't involve the building, but kind of key players for that are like Mr. Anderson, Mrs. Kirk, a couple teachers in that area, sit down and hash out a plan for recess, lunch, technology. Transitions in the building, lunches, lunch. So there's a lot to do yet as far as the areas in the building. But July 20th we'll have a game plan for the entire district, and we've got kind of a rough draft started already. Any questions for that? No, I do feel like tomorrow's meeting we'll have a little bit more conversation, but unfortunately some of these meetings are kind of similar to the initial graduation, where our hope was that we'd have a lot of input and dialogue, and unfortunately it's kind of being dictated for us. But the internal building level meetings, I think we have a lot more ability to make decisions. One of the meetings, like Mr. Peterson led on June 26th, the pre-K through second grade crew met and talked about just the different platforms that we use as far as like Dojo versus Seesaw, and trying to get one common platform that we use throughout the district. And then July 28th, then we're going to be, which timeline wise this is getting tricky as far as sports starting and trying to get a plan in place pretty quickly, but we've been told WI is going to be releasing some more guidance on fall sports. Mr. Rosine and myself are going to be meeting with the Lakeland. In the morning, we meet with the Polconi Soups to talk about the sports, and then in the afternoon, we're meeting with the Lakeland Conference to discuss the sports and extracurricular WIA-affiliated activities, and try to create a plan and get that communicated out to the coaches. Any questions regarding that?
No, it's hard because it's all up in the air.
It's hard because it's up in the air, and it's extremely difficult because, even with the planning, in one meeting you're talking about, what are we going to do with kids on the bus and how far apart they need to be, and then in the next meeting you're talking about football practice and basketball, and there's just this discrepancy as far as you feel like there's mixed messages, kind of across the board as far as, what are we trying to do to make sure everybody's healthy and safe, and you have the guidance from WIA and DPI and CDC, and then you're also working with the local health department. So it's been interesting to navigate, that's for sure, as far as the complexity, and like I was telling earlier, like I was saying earlier, this has impacted literally every aspect of the school district. This morning, Mrs. Karnick and I were meeting with WEA, who is our 403B vendor. We have to revise our 403B plan across the district because of COVID and how it has impacted the 403B. And as you guys know, we're hoping to refinance, and so things that you'd normally never touch, in 20 years are getting impacted by it. So definitely interesting. So anyway, I know everybody's kind of chomping at the bit to have information in their hands and to find out what we're doing in the fall, but we'll have information in everybody's hands soon enough. So July 20th is the game plan. Any questions with the planning, reopening? No? Okay.
Want to move on, Josh? Then?
Sure. Yep. We're good.
So then we'll move on to the, thank you for that, Josh.
Yep.
We'll move on to the approval of a new hire.
Okay, so the interview committee identified Rachel Gent as the individual for the vacancy in the third grade, for the third grade position.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the new hire.
Second.
And properly moved and seconded to approve the hire of Rachel Gent. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to the approval of the 2021 academic standards.
Okay. So this, every year you guys have to approve, it's a state statute that you approve what the district chooses to adopt for the standards. We use we choose to use the Wisconsin state standards. I gave you that link in the board documents if you wanted to look through those. But as you remember, if you recall, those are what we've been looking at, developing our curriculum, unpacking standards, and kind of realigning our curriculum across the district as well.
I move to approve the academic standards.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the 2021 academic standards. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item of business is the review of the 2019-2020 seclusion and restraints.
Okay. So every year we have to review if there were any students that were restrained or secluded across the district. This year we had a very good year, and it really doesn't have to do with seclusion and restraint. Has nothing to do with anybody's whether they're a good teacher or a poor teacher, if you're doing something right or something wrong. It really has to do with the most of the time it has to do with the student population. You know, if you have one student, a high needs student that can be a risk to themselves or others, you may restrain, you know, on a daily basis. And if that's what that student needs, it's within their IEP, it's totally legal, and it's considered best practice. But we didn't have, and I think 2 years ago, you know, we did have quite a few restraints that, you know, we reviewed as a board. This year we just had one student on October 14th at the kindergarten level. So if you look at the document that says seclusion and restraint, it just doesn't identify who the student is, just says the date. It was a restraint. And when there's a restraint, there's law that you have to have it filled out within a certain amount of time. The documentation gets mailed home. There's kind of a checks and balances process that you fill it out, and then it goes to, if it's special ed, in this case, it'd go to the special ed director, and then myself and the principal, depending on which building, and then we house that. So anyway, just one restraint, none at the junior, senior high. And we do CPI training, crisis prevention intervention, which is a type of training too, to make sure everybody's safe. Any questions with that document, or no?
Thanks, Josh. Then we'll move on to the approval of the 2021 food service prices, student fees, and athletic event prices.
Okay. So I put it within the superintendent notes, and then I also have a separate document with it on there too. But the only change with the pricing is the adult lunch prices. We're proposing to move it from $3.60 to $3.65. The only time we've ever recommended that I bring it to the board level is when we feel like a DPI gives you a formula, and if your numbers fall outside of that formula, then their recommendation is to increase a certain amount of money. Otherwise, you could be penalized during the audit, and that's in this case. So the recommendation is to increase it a nickel at the adult lunch price. All other lunch and breakfast prices remain the same.
Adults probably won't be allowed in for lunch.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this would be staff too.
all staff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I move to approve the food service prices, student fees, and athletic event prices.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the prices. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 9.75 million taxable general obligation refunding bonds.
It's a mouthful. Okay, so we have a little bit of a hiccup with the refinancing. So we haven't been denied, but because there's been a large number of school districts refinancing, that the Baird has asked that they gave me the verbiage to put in the board meeting, and they asked that that you guys approve this resolution, and all this means is that we are at a standstill. We haven't been denied, but we haven't been accepted for the refinances. So we're just waiting until the bank has almost caught up, and then once they're caught up, then this if you guys approve this, then that would give them the ability to move on it immediately. So the refinance. Unfortunately, we're not locked in at the 2.5%, so we're just kind of in a waiting game if you guys choose to approve that. And I think we went through it, it ends up saving us, if we do lock in at the 2.5%, I think it was like a $10,000 per year until until 2033 maybe, I think. So it's a decent amount of savings. So hopefully we can still lock in on it. Let me just look at my notes quick, because she gave me a couple notes too from Baird. So this resolution, the parameters would be no less than 2% saving, the interest rate to not exceed 3%, and then she said the parameters of the resolution would provide flexibility to refinance on any day in the future without a board meeting. And that's it. So the two main things are the no less than 2% saving and then the interest rate to not exceed 3%. Any questions?
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed 9.75 million taxable general obligation refunding bonds. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next item of business is the review of the staff survey.
Okay, so we talked about this at the last board meeting. I sent you guys a document, just the PDF. So if you notice, the questions were frozen in there. Obviously, you can't adjust the PDF. So I thought I'd just throw it on here to just kind of walk through it. I won't read every single one. But as a whole, I think our staff was very positive. They responded very well, during the closure. I think everybody did a heck of a job. I think there was some anxiety for all of us, including myself and I think everybody in the room. But I think as a whole, when you go through this survey, I think with the exception of maybe one response, everybody really recognized that this was kind of out of our control and there wasn't a whole lot. Everything was changing so fast that like I said, there wasn't a whole lot of that we had control over. But so anyway, we sent the survey out just to see, kind of get a pulse for how everybody felt like it went. Things that we could reflect on and do better, things that we did well. Those type of items. So sent it to everybody in the district. We got 54 responses. So I'll just kind of go through. Whoop. Just go down here. Okay.
Is it a requirement in your surveys that people say who they are?
No. This one was.
Like the parent survey had that same thing.
Yeah, we talked about doing a not having them, but when we talked about it, we thought if there was an issue, we wanted to know who it was, so if we needed to address it, we could. As far as the feedback, I'm trying to just think. Can you think of?
We also we asked some questions about our parents' feelings about returning to school or not, and we recognize and just having some discussions with other districts, there may be a segment of parents saying, I'm not sending my child to school. And I was talking to another administrator and they said, we got that feedback, but we didn't have names. So it's kind of helpful to know, okay, who are those parents saying I'm not coming back to school next year, so we can reach out to them and figure out what to do, So that was a part of the reason for it. That's just one example.
So overall, Criticsville District leadership did a good job protecting faculty from negative health consequences. Mostly strongly agreed. We had a few who agree, and then I think that was one response. One individual said neither agree nor disagree. But the district did a good job helping faculty adapt to the changes at the institution brought on by the spread of COVID-19. Majority were strongly agreed, some agreed, and then there was, I think, one response. One response that said neither agree nor disagree.
Josh, was disagree one of the options that they could pick? Just checking.
Yeah. Yep. You can strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Oh,
That's just.
okay. It's not a bad idea though. I might have to use that one for my evaluation, actually. School district helped faculty understand the priorities, direction, in their work, given changes that the schools brought to the spread. You know, a majority strongly agreed. And I think this speaks too with, you know, even when we were making decisions, sometimes we'd make a decision on the direction we were headed, and within 24 hours we had to change, and we didn't even know our direction, you know, at some time. So it was nice to see that the majority of staff felt like, you know, we did a good job, and that they felt supported. I think this was a big one. You know, this was one that I did, you know, as we met and talked as an admin team, I feel like that we stressed this a lot, just that we kind of dealt with it at a human level, that we showed concern, that we wanted to make sure that, you know, if there were underlying health issues, or if there was, you know, some type of issue that we didn't know about, you know, in every communication that we sent out, especially to the support staff once we had already closed, you know, we're just talking about, please communicate with us and let us know if there's something that we can do to help. So I do feel like people, you know, overall felt like we were flexible in dealing with it. Overall, you know, 61% felt satisfied with the support that they were getting, and adjust to the changes. Please indicate your level of satisfaction with the ongoing responses. Kind of similar question. The clarity of the communication, the majority were very satisfied. Some were generally satisfied, and, you know, there's one person that was dissatisfied. And I think we, you know, when you look at the surveys, the top tier and bottom tier, you know, you try to focus on the middle tier. And I think overall the majority were pleased. Okay, so the support you've received from the Clear Lake District to help you to revise your classes to a distance learning format. This would, you know, to be honest, I was very pleased with this response, because when you think about, you know, we had 2 days to kind of pull something together to try to do a distance learning format, and I've said this before, our staff were absolutely remarkable. Both our support staff supporting our teachers, and then our teachers doing it, you know, while trying to instruct during those 2 to 3 day period, and then throughout. I think the variable of communication during this time was unbelievable. Like, I know I wasn't ready for it. Like, every Zoom meeting that I was a part of, it could have been a Saturday Night Live skit. You know, you had someone that was on, you know, mute, or someone's connection was poor, and the communication was extremely difficult, you know, throughout the whole process. And so I was happy to see this response, that, you know, overall, you know, they felt supported, and that the majority were very satisfied. What the changes in the clear decision and response will impact your employment. Very satisfied with the majority. And then we had quite a few questions where we just wanted to get their feedback, give them opportunity to kind of write in kind of what they were feeling. I think overall it was extremely positive. You know, I'd say that one of the key themes that or areas that there wasn't as much, I guess, satisfaction was grades. And that was for a good reason. You know, we talked about, you know, do we communicate that out initially? Do we hold on? Do we not communicate that out right away? And we had made the decision to hang on, because we didn't want to lose, you know, students or staff, as far as if everyone knew that they weren't going to be graded on it. Like, would we lose engagement? And our key focus was engagement. And most of those concerns or comments, I think, were at the high school level or senior high level, which I completely get. I understand where they were coming from, as far as, you know, the wanting to have grades tied to it, but unfortunately, you know, we just didn't feel like we could justify grades during that time, just because of the many arguments that the, you know, parents or individuals would have, and that the variable of not knowing what families were dealing with. It was pretty tough to have grades. But overall, as far as our approach as an admin team and the communication, was overwhelmingly positive. And then also, I think there was a lot, initially, we talked at the board level, there was some frustration with, different areas as far as who's working more, who's not. But I think as a whole, overall, very pleased, multiple comments about being appreciative that the board made the decision to keep everybody employed. And then even the professional development and some of the tracking that we had done at the support staff level, even that was communicated that they appreciated it, how we handled it and some of the stuff that we offered. Willingness to be flexible, communication was good. I think this one's a key, this comment here, I know that speaks to what I saw, everyone's willingness to help out. We went to, we had the homework pickup, drop off at the elementary, and then we have different things, pick up and drop off here, and it was really amazing to see both support staff and teaching staff, just their willingness to do kind of anything, whatever it took to make sure that everybody got what they needed. And then also in one of the staff meetings I talked to about the specialist groups, leading into it, I thought these guys, we're gonna have to come up with some type of game plan for our specialist teachers during this time, because initially I'm thinking how do you do anything, as a specialist during this time? If you're a music teacher or a teacher or librarian, how do you, it almost seemed impossible, and I feel like that group really stepped up with, how they distributed information out to kids, and really the engagement, I guess, is the kind of word that comes to mind when you think of that group. Really try to keep them engaged and keep that communication going. So, and then like I said, at the support staff level, I think everyone was so appreciative and thankful that they were still employed and continuing to work, that we had more than enough help with everything that we were doing, whether it was meal drop off, meal packing, homework, like I said, homework pickup, and then even we had staff members that were even in some of the Zoom meetings, in the pre-K and kindergarten classrooms, helping out with that and just getting their face on camera for the kids, which was neat to see too. Some of what caused the most stress or anxiety, everything that was in there was pretty much the same things that caused me the most stress and anxiety. And overall, not, you read through the responses and not one was, the administrative team not doing this or a certain group not doing that. It was all had to do with how quickly things were changing, not knowing, and then a lot of comments about, just how this is impacting students, which I think really speaks to our staff. Usually, you throw a question like that, and it's all about me, and it was really about, how are our kids being impacted by this, and how's this impacting our kids. So, and then you'll see that first one is grades. I think that like I said, that caused some stress too. Just the unknown, the uncertainty of the upcoming year. Only the schoolwork for my kids stressed me out. Nothing. That person wasn't stressed during this time. The distance learning platform, you really could say lack thereof. We were, thrust into this and trying to build a plane while we were in midair. Grading. Expectations, and I think too, initially that came from, we thought maybe this was a short-term closure, and then we were waiting on the Department of Public Instruction, how long this was going to go, and we didn't really know what the expectations were on our end as administrators, and kind of working through that. So, but like I said, overall it was very, very positive. So, you guys have any questions, or certainly give you access to the, oh no, I did give you the questions, yeah.
Are there any plans to do any professional development around online instruction, knowing that we're going into fall and an alternative
possible delivery mode?
Yeah, we're going to do, I think we're going to have to do kind of two things. You know, one, we're going to, right from the get-go, because our plan is really ultimately, we're going to be going 5 days a week with the potential of short-term shutdown. And I don't even want to say potential, but
Yeah.
with the reality that we'll probably have some short-term shutdown. So the expectation, like we met with the pre-K second grade, we're going to have a common platform for communication. Everybody's going to have Google Classrooms, so that way we'll be doing that right away. And then our hope is that we'll be pushing staff to do flipped classrooms right away from the beginning, to try to get some of that familiarity with the kids. We're going to be deploying devices at darn near every grade level, so the kids will have those in hands and get familiar with it. And then we also are talking about the possibility of remote learning, which will most likely be a program, and then there'll be some professional development for certain individuals on that, depending on what we choose. But Mrs. Meyer, Mr. Crawford, our two IT internal coordinators, so we're going to really lean on them to provide even more guidance on that right away in the fall. Am I missing anything?
Yeah. CISA 11 has been really great too this spring. They've had, they had to switch up their format and not be in person, so they were offering a whole bunch of trainings for free. So we threw those out to teachers. They had Google Classroom, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and so we had some people participating in those. They were free. They could sign up themselves and just do it. And then, we've been working with Mrs. Meyer and Mr. Crawford in the second week of August. We're working to set up some days for teachers to do Google Classroom training for 3rd grade through 6th, and then JK through 2nd grade, they're going to use Seesaw as their platform that they learn or that they use for learning. And then I think that's going to be more of like a share shop. Like they're going to come in, and some of them were using it last year, so they're going to do more of a, get in the room and kind of share with each other their experience and how to use it. And there's some videos that I think they can use. So that's kind of the plan with that group that met already. And then, so trying to give people different options, I guess.
No, because I think we know wave 2 is coming. We know Polk County could be more of a high risk area after what happened in River Falls with the bars. We've got the same potentials.
So do we have any guidance from the Polk County Health Department? Do they have any protocols in place if we have a positive case in the district? Do we know what that's going to look like?
We have some. It's really going to be a kind of depend on the case, because we had been asking for that with the meetings that I've been going to. Say, can we just get guidance if we do have a case? Does that mean we automatically shut down the district? And the answer is no. So what the Polk County has communicated to us is depends on the situation, depends on the case. They will. So for example, I think one of the examples was if they feel like it was an isolated incident or exposure, and let's say in the in the 6th grade wing, we might just shut down the 5th and 6th grade wing and allow them to do kind of the tracing and do it, and then internally we do a clean within that area, but leave the rest of the district open. Now, if it's a case maybe where we feel like it's a 7th grade student or junior or whatever at this building where they've transitioned to multiple areas and the county feels like there's been too many areas that have been compromised, then they might shut it down. But they have not committed to any saying if there's a case you're automatically shutting down. That goes with staff or students. So I think that's a good thing, because I do think it will depend on the case, and it'll be as soon as we know, we'll be communicating with the county and getting guidance, and then they'll ultimately be making that decision. So. Any other questions with the survey?
Which was your favorite board member?
Yeah. Why wasn't that question on there?
Yeah, here we are. Remember when we started talking about this COVID-19, and here we are, starting up again, and I guess we're just going to take it head on.
Yeah.
Take our licks and
teachers getting a survey, kind of like the parents got today, how they feel about some of the safety things? Or should they?
Well, we want to invite them in to be part of the meetings
Yeah.
for the planning.
I mean, some of them obviously have kids here, so they'll do it that way, but not all of them will have that. You know, I looked through the survey, it asked a lot of precautionary things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish you could have done that by grade level. I think my concerns for an elementary school student are very different than my concerns for my high school student.
But there's
That-
comment sections, so you can
It was a
say,
little difficult to put that in there. So that was my only thing with the survey. I'm like, oh, I wish I could have just filled out one for the elementary school and then one for the
Sure.
high school
Yeah.
by building.
Good feedback.
Because I want to know how you're going to get that K through second to not hug.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the, yeah.
That's
reality.
the hard
Yeah.
piece.
And, I mean, to be honest, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times I've come home and my youngest is, right away giving me a hug and I'm like, hang on, you gotta make sure you're washing your hands and getting the clothes off, just from being here. And that is, I mean, you go into that, having a little one myself, you go into those classrooms and they are on top of each other.
Well, day one, some of them haven't seen each other for
Yeah.
200 plus
Yeah.
days.
So I think it's going to be a lot of, working with the staff to, one, I think the hand washing is another piece and the physical contact because, look at my own children, my young one, as soon as they wash their hands, they're dirty within seconds, just because of what they're touching or where they're putting their fingers and stuff. But I think that's going to be at the lower levels, a key piece as part of their new routine down there is the frequent hand washing. And then also kind of, teachable moments of trying to make sure that everybody's, keeping their distance and.
I know a week or two ago, there was, I can't remember the organization, but pediatricians that put out guidelines or their recommendations too, and it's that continuum of, what's age appropriate, because what's right for kindergartners is going to be your expectations for kindergarten, very different for fifth graders or ninth graders, of course, like you're getting at. I mean, developmentally, what are they capable of doing and what are the limitations they're capable of following? I mean, there's got to be reality.
Yeah.
or if you think of 3 feet between 25 little kids, that's a 75-foot long line.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's a long line down the hallway to get into the
Right.
bathroom.
Right. It's hard enough to get them down
I
there
mean, yeah,
close to each other.
when they're touching each other back to stomach, you
Right,
know,
yeah.
but the 75-foot line, really?
I think it's more of a keeping that class together, because whatever one has them 20 are gonna have.
Yeah, they're all
away
gonna
from
get it.
the other.
Well, that's
From the other class.
there's no way you're gonna, this is a contagious disease. This is a cold that gets spread easily and quickly. And I mean, we shut the country down and stifled it a little bit, but it's rare again. You put that in a school setting and
So are you expecting, you just said Polk County went to high risk, are you expecting Brian to really change some parameters here with that? That would, Brian is a Polk County
Yep,
health
director.
guy.
I don't know.
I mean, are you gonna be starting from scratch with some of this stuff now that we're a high risk county?
No, I don't think so. It doesn't sound that way. I think the risk levels, I think, are going to have more of an impact on our sports and activities than they are within
Within the school
within
day?
the school day. Because there's only so much you can do within the four walls of your building, and I think we're going to be doing those things regardless of if we're on a low or a high risk. We're still going to be making kids wash their hands and doing those type of things. So I don't see the building level procedures changing. I see the activities, the guidance for the WIA and the after school activities changing. I do maybe if we get to the point where we're at a low, one of the things that we'll be talking about tomorrow is no more field trips and bringing people into the district. Some of those things we might loosen up on if we're a low risk and we see the curve changing.
I have to say.
Well, this, not to get off track, we had a vacation last week and had some time, we were up at a cabin, and we were putting our boat on the trailer, and I'm pulling over and I'm watching this. It had to have been a summer school going on in this community, because here comes this young guy, must, late 20s, early 30s, looked like he had to be a teacher, and he had 12, 15 kids, looked like they were maybe second or third grade age, and it was a fishing class, and they're all coming down to this big dock and pier for a fishing class, and I'm like watching them, and it was funny, they were being typical kids, like, there was not social distancing going on, because these kids are casting their line, and here, give me a worm, no, look at this, I chuckle, because I'm like,
That's
they're kids,
reality.
you're not going to.
But I think from a district perspective, I think like
Yeah.
what Skip said, if you can keep them in cohorts or homerooms or whatever term you want to use, I think that will help if there is an outbreak to try to figure out, what you have to contain and what you have to do. I do think that will be, the best approach that we can have doing it, because yet, we have 600 plus kids in 2 buildings. I mean, it's just impossible to keep kids apart. I mean, it's just, there's only so many rooms and there's only, so many places.
Are you going to
move
go back
kids.
to desks in those classrooms instead of the tables?
Well,
Yeah.
we'll have to have them spaced out.
Who can make the meeting tomorrow? I think we'll hear a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that would be important. If
Say
we
that
can
again?
make it, to make it that meeting for us, just to be able to hear more of the planning meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Some of this smaller, not small detail.
Yep.
Honestly, some of those smaller details I think will come more with building meetings. Like I think tomorrow, if we're looking at more of like an overarching plan for bigger issues, then I think some of those details are going to continue to get discussed into August.
Yeah, it's here. As of yesterday, there's 3 cases of people employed at Golden Age that tested positive thus far. So they're waiting for an explosion there. COVID is here.
Any questions with the survey? No? Okay.
Anything more?
Nope, not for me.
All right, so then we'll move on to our approval of the 2020-2021 preliminary budget.
Okay. I think it's the last document. I can find it. Yep, stapled together, it's the last document, preliminary budget for 2021. These are very much, I say this kind of every year, these are just best guesses, and I feel like 90% of this, and even more so this year with the coronavirus and everything. So, but anyway, I'll go through these. So I have the preliminary budget on the shaded blue side, the right column. So I'll go through just Fund 10. Feel free to ask questions or if you have any comments. Right-hand side, the property. A lot of these items, if you recall, we do the preliminary budget, which is just a best guess. A lot of the numbers come out in October. Some a little earlier, some a little later, depending on which item we're talking about. Some of these are solid numbers, but for the most part, the especially the revenue side of things are best guesses. And then we do the annual meeting, which in this year's August 24th. Those still are best guesses, but it gets us a little bit closer, a little better best guesses. And then the final numbers, like I said, come in the fall, and then you guys make the revisions to the budget, and then you approve the final budget, or the revisions to the final budget in the fall. So right now, what we're doing, like we were in a good spot. Like I think I shared with you guys at the last meeting. Many districts are doing kind of what we do every year, where they don't do any increases, and then wait for the final numbers, and then make the decision for the increases, and then like what we do. If you guys approve an increase, then that retro pay happens in the fall, and then the retro pay from the beginning of the year. So these numbers are based off of a 2% increase. That's my goal again this year, same as last year, where we're trying to do a 2% increase across the board for every area. So I'm not going to go through every single item, but if you just look through the numbers, you can even compare them from the 1920 final budget to this next year 2021 preliminary, the numbers. I guess I can.
What's the big jump with the special project grant, the CTE and the EE? Looks like a jump. 10 grand?
32 to 13.
Where are you at?
Oh, down in the
State revenues under 600.
Oh, okay, yep, gotcha. So EE, that's pretty much the same every single year, but the CTE money, that's different. And is that based on the number of kids?
It's kids that are in YA.
So we've had a huge influx in the number of kids, which is YA Youth Apprenticeship. So
yep.
when they work, then we get reimbursed a percentage of that. Yep. So we've had, Mr. Larson has been, he was in charge of that last year. We've had a lot of kids that have taken advantage of that. So that's based on those numbers. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many kids we had, but we had somewhere between 10 to 15, I think, kids this past year. Is that correct, Mrs. Carrington?
Yeah, I think there's probably 20, yeah.
20, okay. So it's
It's not all of them, we won't get money for all of them for the CT, but some of them.
Okay.
And how about transportation being cut in half?
So that's transportation aid. Yep. So we got $50,000 last year in transportation aid. That was outside of the normal aid. So the 34 is kind of back to the normal
2 years ago.
aid. Yeah. I don't remember why we received that extra 50,000 of transportation aid, but that was a nice surprise last year.
I'm going to ask Josh,
Yep.
when does our year end?
Say it again.
When does
June
our
30th.
fiscal year end?
Yep, end of June, last day, June 30th.
So that's soon enough for you to kind of take a look at it and know what huge differences the COVID-19 had on our expenditures, and I guess just the expenditures. Were there any surprises?
Paper?
Yeah, paper. The real impact is going to be summer school. And we won't know that. The summer school is part of a formula, and because we don't have, we don't get to count those FTE this year with summer school, that's going to have a negative impact. Overall, though, we saved. We had a pretty good chunk of savings this year just because we didn't have people in the building. We weren't operating on full capacity.
No trips.
Yeah, we didn't have, professional development, field
Less
trips,
subs,
Yeah.
sporting events.
cost of running the buildings was less than it has been.
Yeah. So quite a few areas. I mean, we had a big savings in costs.
Were you forced to use that someplace then, to use it other?
No, so the budgeting process is, I've been told Wisconsin, and I believe it just from seeing it, is one of the most complex budgeting processes in any other state in the United States. So if you underspend or if you overspend, it affects your state aid, your aid for the following year. So the best advice I ever took was from Baird when they said create that Fund 46. That's been my safety net, and that's allowed us to almost act like a savings account. Our intent with that was to save enough money for the roof for the high school, or it can only be used for operation purposes, but you can't use it until after year 5 of the initial, which I think for us is it's either next year or the following year, so it'll be fairly soon. And there's a waiver, I think, in place, or a petition in place to try to access that sooner, which we won't need. But so anyway, we are in a good spot because of the Fund 46. So we're not going to be penalized for underspending this year because of the Fund 46. Okay, so like you saw, the transportation aid that's gone down a little bit. Library aid that stays pretty pretty much the same. Per pupil adjustment aid, you see that's going up a little bit. Same with the equalization aid is just the best guess. We'll know that more in the near future. Sparsity aid went down a little bit. CTE and educator effectiveness grant went up quite a bit. The AGR aid went down a little bit. Computer and personal property aid remains the same. So that's the state revenue, the federal dollars, the Title I money is going up a little bit. Title II and Title IV is also going up, just almost about 10 grand. We applied for the SSR, the Small Rural Schools Grant. I don't know if you guys remember that 2 years ago. I'd applied for it and we got it. Last year we didn't because of our enrollment. We didn't qualify. So that's just a guess. I'm hoping that we'll qualify for the SRSA grant again. The CARES Act money, so this is the COVID money. We are going to receive $80,000, just a hair over $80,000 for CARES money, and that money can obviously be only used for things that are impacted by the coronavirus, which is pretty much absolutely everything that's been impacted. But as far as like the spending of that money, it's similar to like the title money as far as what it can be allocated for. You can't just spend it on whatever you want. But the Title I and II and IV are kind of the same type of criteria or areas that it can be spent for. DOJ grant is no longer. We don't have that this year. The other grants, it's just a kind of a best guess of $3,000. So total Fund 10 revenues is 7.6 million as far as expenditures go. And then if you look at the revenue side of, the revenues, and then if you look at the expenditure side of things, this is where for the annual meeting I give you that graph. I mean the largest chunk of our spending is salaries and benefits, like everybody else, and then you have the insurance and some of that. But like I said, it's based off of the 2% increase across the board. So you have the 110s, a little bit up. The regular curriculum is a hair up as well. Really not a whole lot of changes, similar to last, the last year's budget, except with the 2% increase. So the regular instruction, is at 3.6 million, where last year was just a hair under that. It was 3.5. Then we have support services. The pupil services is a little bit higher. Educational media, and you'll notice a lot of what we spent that I think a lot of districts might have to use as their CARES money. We were able to fit into our budget this year. Like we won't have any expenses. I shouldn't say any, but we'll have very minimal expenses on technology. Like I said, we talked about a device in every student's hand. We won't have those expenses because we've already budgeted for those and purchased those items. Yep, go ahead.
The device. Do we know what households don't have the ability to put those devices online? And if we do have some identified, do we have a way of trying to connect the dots?
We do. We have some. There's very few that have no access, and those there were two families that had been communicating with the teacher, and then we were working with that teacher to get that information out to their houses. But some of the what we ran into is we had some that were using like their phones as hotspots, so that was kind of problematic or an issue. I met with Mr. Osmonrud last week. We talked about possibly reaching out to a church or two, kind of areas like we did with this school this year, where we allowed internet access if you could come to the parking lot and then you could get that. We thought about possibly reaching out to a church or a building or two to say, hey, we'll provide internet for you for the year as a district is if your area parking lot can be used as kind of like a hotspot type thing. Some districts have used their buses, like they go and park buses, but then that gets a little bit tricky as far as just having a vehicle kind of, and then you have to have someone probably sit in it. And so anyway, we do have a couple families that we've identified as not having internet or limited internet availability. So kind of working through some ideas to see what we can do for those couple families.
I would just say there, call my office.
Let's say again.
On any of that, we should talk with my general manager and me, because we know where the fiber is. I mean, it's not going to work with DSL. We have to have it at a fiber place. So a church with DSL isn't going to work. We know which churches have fiber. We know which businesses have fiber. We also have money set aside to help families get connected if we need to.
Okay.
So but
Okay.
I would say call our office and we can start
Get
working on
some-
that and start getting some better idea where those would work.
Okay, great. So total 200s, it's just a hair over 2.8, which is not much higher than last year. Special ed transfer is about the same. We're just kind of that's a best guess at the 600,000. The referendum dollars, the Fund 39, that might change depending on the refinancing situation. So those numbers might change. Open enrollment is like, shooting in the dark. I mean, it's just, you never really know. I don't even like to say a best guess because it's just sometimes you feel like it's just totally random, but kind of based off the numbers and what your best guess as far as what you think you'll have for students opening and roll in and opening and roll out as far as that dollar amount. But
What happens if parents decide not to send their kids? If they do online school, how does that affect our dollars?
if it's provided by us, they would still be
Still enrolled.
part of that count. Yep. So total Fund 10 expenditures is that 7.7. Total, you look back on the first page, total revenues is 7.6. So, ballpark, obviously we try to do a balanced budget. And that's just, like I said, just a best guess, and hopefully those numbers will be a little bit closer. But right now it's, just a hair off. Any questions with Fund 10? That's the meat of our budget. Fund 21, so that's new. If you guys recall, you guys approved the budget revision. So this was previously in Fund 60. Then we shifted all of our activities account because we had to per DPI. So now all of that is in Fund 21. So it's just my interpretation. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because you know better than I do, Lori. But it really just kind of more checks and balances that now it's in front of you guys. But we can't itemize everything out because it's really, you don't know how much the volleyball team or the football team is going to fundraise. It'd be a very loose best guess. So we're just choosing to put in there just kind of the ending balance, the beginning balance, and the ending balance. I mean, with these accounts, they can only spend what they make most of the time. So these are all of our activities funds. Does that make sense? Okay. Fund 27, so that's special education. Transfer from Fund 10, that's the same as what I previously said in the Fund 10 as far as the transfer that we transfer from Fund 10. That's a guess of $600,000 to cover the cost of our special ed, some of our special ed funding or special ed costs. Total Fund 27 revenues and expenditures are that $990,000 for revenues and expenditures. You can see if I back up a little bit the how much we get with state aid and then the special project grant money. Okay, so Fund 38 and 39. So 38 is our Non-referendum money, that's the energy efficiency, energy exemption of money. So we were the referendum was the last year that you could roll those two together. And then Fund 39 is the referendum dollars. These numbers, if we do refinance, will totally change. But these numbers, since your referendum, Baird has always done this for the district, so they give us the numbers, and then they have us on a schedule that we continue to pay that. And as you saw during the referendum or the refinancing conversation, that goes till 2033. Fund 46 is the safety net budget. So as you can see, we're doing very well. My goal, when we first kind of had that, my goal was, that 500,000 was kind of my goal. We've already exceeded that, and we're at 800,000, which is very exciting. So when we get to the point where we have to make some decisions for this building, we'll be sitting very, very well. Food service really functions on their own. Fund 50 is the food service fund. It generates quite a bit of revenue, so it's always doing very well, and we're always looking for ways to spend that money. So to improve the kitchen. So this year, I think right now we're looking at a new
Ice cream machine.
ice cream machine. No,
It's a new oven, isn't it?
it's an oven.
Oven.
We're looking at an oven, yeah, and then
Some milk coolers.
milk coolers, and then what am I thinking of? Where the food sits? Those
Oh,
like.
those
Serving.
ones, the wells.
Warm.
Yeah, the well warming area. So looking at a couple different things within Fund 50.
Ice cream.
So like I said, Fund 50 is typically sitting, since I've been here, it's always been sitting very well. Penny does a really good job monitoring that. 72, Fund 72 is a scholarship fund. That's really, we just kind of house it. Not a whole lot that we do with it. It's kind of speaks for itself. It's the money that's tied to the scholarship fund. And then Fund 80 is a community ed. So the dollars that we spend for the community ed service. Any questions with the preliminary budget? And then if you remember with the for the annual meeting, I'll have kind of more information as far as how much exactly we plan on levying, and graphs and stuff Ray had asked for. So that'll be part of this year's document again.
I move to approve the budget.
Second. Been properly moved and seconded to approve the preliminary budget for 2020-21 school year. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Superintendent notes, Dr. Joshua Ernst.
I don't have any. I think I've talked enough. So it's it's been a lot of meetings and planning lately. So, but like I said, we'll have something out to everybody, all stakeholders on the 20th.
Okay, and with that, we'll move on to our contemplated closed session in accordance to WSS 19.85, paragraph 1C, considering employment compensation or performance data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Tonight, the board will talk about the review of employee compensation and performance. I will pull the board. Ryan?
Yes.
Nate?
Yes.
Skip?
Yep.
So, yes. Everybody who's here is going to be here? We are in closed session. We are in open session. Next item of business is future agenda items. Anybody have anything that they want to?
Yep, I'll have employee handbook, transportation handbook. Typically we do those this month, but I've been holding out a little bit longer just to see if there's going to be any more changes with those. Transportation handbook, there's a possibility, very likely possibility that we'll have drivers wearing face coverings, that might be included in the handbook. And then WASB gave out an addendum to the employee handbook that we'll probably be adding to the handbook for approval. That's just two off the top of my head.
Well, that's good enough then. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.